Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Mordian Glory video. So today I will be taking my time to review and go over and do a sort of tactical analysis and event analysis of the Northern Warlords 2019 team tournament, which I attended this weekend on the 22nd and 23rd of June 2019. So, first thing I want to say is the tournament was incredibly well run. It's going to be a positive review, positive video. We're going to be covering all the different games and the different tactics and all that kind of stuff. But before we get into any of that, I want to say huge congratulations to the tournament organisers, which were the Northern Warlords, which is part of the Warhammer Club, which I'm part of. Not biased though, it was a really good tournament, very well run, terrain was great, tables were great, timings were good, and standard of play was very high, which is always good. Now a little bit of background for myself on this is I haven't been to a proper 2-day competitive tournament in a while. I took a little bit of a break from tournaments. Those of you may remember last year I had a couple of really bad instances. A couple of tournaments where I played against a couple of people, which really soured the mood for me. So I took a little break from tournaments. I started doing things like my Gene Stealer cult, do a bit more hobby, and still played competitive sort of games, but just friendly ones down the club or at weekends. Okay, so took a little bit of a break. Took about 6 months, 6 to 8 months out doing proper tournaments, and then I decided it's time to get back into it. You know, because I reflected. I was worried I was getting a little bit intense. I was worried that my work life was bothering my tournament life and all that, because I just wanted to make sure that reset, took a break, went back into it. So this tournament was the first big competitive tournament that I'd been to in at least 6 months. So it was a bit apprehensive, but I wanted to get back into it. So and I want to say, thankfully, I had a really positive experience, and I'm definitely back on the tournament scene. I got another one next month and another one in August. So we're smashing the tournament scene now. So, for those of you that don't know how the team tournament works, Northern Warlords team tournament, it's essentially it's an ETC grand tournament. So there were 22 teams and there were 4 people on each team, so 88 people, which is pretty good. Each team, you could only take each faction once. So if one person took Imperial Guard, no one else could take Imperial Guard, which was interesting because it kind of limited soup a bit. Tended to find you could get maybe 2 soup lists at most in a team, because you could have like an Imperial soup and then like an Eldar soup. But if you had too much soup, you were in one list, you were really shafting your allies, your teammates. ETC, for those that don't know, I know a lot of you guys, especially across the pond, play ITC. ETC is the European tournament circuit, I believe, and it's a combination of Maelstrom and Eternal War, and there's also something called kill point differential in there as well. So you play a Maelstrom mission, so there's always 6 objectives on the board. You play Maelstrom, you know what, numbers 1 to 6. You play Maelstrom, so you draw cards and everything, but also you've got to keep in, at the same time, you've got to think about Eternal War and where you're going to end up at the end of the game. Kill point differential, you get an extra point for kill points up to a maximum of 6. If you kill 10 things and your opponent kills 16 things, then they would get an extra 6 points. But if they kill 17, 18, 19, it wouldn't matter. They'd still only get 6 points. So it's a maximum of 6. So that's the scoring. That's the mission. So what was in my team? So I wasn't team captain because I was, like I said, a bit inexperienced and I wanted just to ease myself back into it. So my team captain used, now initially he said he was going to be using Adeptus Mechanicus, Knights and Guard, which meant that I couldn't use Guard then, and he was using a really good list. So I was like, I'll choose Cult. There was a last minute change where he ended up only using Adeptus Mechanicus and Knights, but I'd already committed with cult. I've been practicing pretty solidly with that cult list, with my cult for 3 months. So I was like, I'll stick with cult. So Captain had Adeptus Mercatus, Rusty 17, and 4 Knights, 3 Shooty, 1 Gallant, I believe. Then I had my Genius of the Cult list, which I'll go through in a moment. Another player had four Ultramarine Repulsors, with Gilliman, Tigerius, and an Ancient, and then a bunch of Hellblasters inside one of the Repulsors, and some Servitors just to make up the unit choices. Now, the reason you can take 4 Repulsors, guys, and you're actually possibly going to start seeing this list. I think this list was present I saw about 5 or 6 people running this list at the tournament. Very similar configuration. So you're going to start seeing it more often. So be aware of it. Okay, it's 4 Repulsors at least, because they're dedicated transport. So you just take a bunch of cheap units. In this case, my teammate took Servitors, and then you put those 4 Repulsors around Gilliman. So they're all rerolling. They're rerolling all hits. They're rerolling all wounds. They've got Power of the Machine, Spirit. They get tagged. They just fall back and shoot. Fantastic. And even though they degrade, because you've got Gilliman there rerolling everything, it means that degradation to them means nothing. Tigerius can make 1+1 toughness, so the toughness 9 with a spell. He can also make one of them -1 to hit as well. So really powerful. Hellblasters are in there to give a significant amount of anti-tank as well. Now, you're always going to see 4 Repulsors. The flavouring can often be, do you take, my opponent chose to take Hellblasters, but there's a few points in there which you can, some people added in like Smash Captains, some people added in a Guard Battalion. So, there you go. And my final teammate was using Orcs, using a very interesting Orc list. I don't have it to hand, but there was lots of looters. There was a big blob of 30 boys, and there was a lot of Gretchen. He had a lot of Gretchen, and it just allowed him to do layers upon layers of screening, grot shielding. He had some mech guns, and he had some bikes. So an interesting Orc list, and it performed quite well over the tournament. So that's the list. Now, my Genius of the Cult list is one that I've talked about in my one of my previous videos, but I will cover it again quickly. It's 3 battalions. Each one is a different cult trait. So the first one is my Shooting Castle, and it is Hive Cult. I have 3 trucks. Each truck has twin autocannon and a heavy stubber. There's a squad of neophytes in each truck, 2 heavy stubbers, 2 grenade launchers, 30 neophytes, 3 trucks, 2 ridge runners, mining lasers and heavy stubbers and flare launchers, and a Magus and a Jackal Alphas. Now, the Magus, I use Broodcoven to give him the Hive Cult Warlord trait, so he's giving all that stuff reroll 1s to hit, and the Jackal Alphas is giving everyone +1 to hit as well. And then in the second battalion, I have my Rusted Claw, Anti-Chaff and Bike Bomb unit. So it's Patriarch with the Wall Crawler Warlord trait, so he's -1 to hit, which made such a difference. My Patriarch did not die the whole tournament. Since I've switched taking Wall Crawler, he has not died. It is such a difference. Always take Wall Crawler, guys. Always. Means things like Smash Captains only hit him on 4s. And they don't get to reroll the 2s and the 3s. And then he just starts passing things off. Now, I also have a... what's the other character there? I think it's a Magus. I also have a Magus in there. So different Magus in each detachment, so because you only have 1 in each detachment. And she had the Crouchling, and she was there just for Might from Beyond. That's pretty much what the whole thing was. She just put it on a friendly unit. And then I had my Bike Bomb, which was 5 Athelan Jackals, 5 demo charges. Now, originally in the list, I had 2 of these bike bombs, because what they do is they drop in 3 inches away using lying in wait, which allows me to get to then spend, which is 2 CP, and then allows me to do 1 CP for extra explosives and 1 CP, I believe, for drive-by demolitions. So you can drop in and throw 5 demo charges. Now originally they listed 2 of those, but that's 8 CP, which is very intensive, very, very intensive. And the last detachment was Call to the Four-Armed Emperor, and this contained all my close combat stuff. So there was an Aberrant Bomb, 10 Aberrants, 2 Hypermorphs, 2 Power Hammers, 6 Power Picks, Acolyte Bomb, 20 Acolytes with 8 Rock Swords, Cult Banner, Lash Whip and Bone Sword, and the Sergeant, 10 basic Goobers. Clamorous to give them +1 to the charge range, so they're on +2 the turn they drop in. Primus to give them +1 to hit. Acolyte Icon Ward to give them all +1 strength because of the extra relic. So I took the +1 strength banner icon of the Cult Ascendant. Also means the Aberrants are that much tougher because they reroll 1s on the Feel No Pain. And then to make up the last 2 troop choices, I took 2 squads of Brood Brothers, which actually were really good. Really, really good. Should also say in the Rustic Lord attachment, the troop choice I had was 3 squads of Neophytes, Bare Bones, and a big squad of 20 Brood Brothers. So there you go. That was my list. So the theory behind the list is that you have the Shooting Castle, which starts off on the board, and then you have the then you have the Rusted Claw stuff, which can come in around the Patriarch and do major chaff clears. You've got 50 guys there who can get in rapid fire range. And then you have the close combat stuff, which can drop in. You know, the Acolytes can drop in turn 2. You do perfect ambush. You move towards the enemy. You put 4 CP aside for that because you do 3 for the actual stratagem, and you keep 1 in the bag just in case you need to re-roll it. And then you can do the same thing again with the Aberrants. You've got an Acolyte Bomb which comes in and deletes something in close combat. You've got an Aberrant Bomb which comes in, deletes something in close combat. And then you've also got the Bike Bomb which can drop in and demo charge something back to the Stone Age. So, what were the games like? So that's my list. That's the theory behind it. That's my thinking. That's my strategies behind it. How did the games go? So my first game, I got put up against a Chaos list, and it was a very interesting Chaos list. It was Chaos, and there was some demons in there as well. Now, my opponent had 6 units of chaff, 3 units of horrors, 3 units of cultists. He had 2 maximum size bike squads with all the bolter rounds and their chainsaws in every single one. So, a lot taking advantage of the new beta bolter drill means that each one of those squads can put out like 40 bolter shots at 24-inch range, and you can get reroll 1s easily, and you can press against them easily, and you can use warp-sighted thingy to get. So they're all hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, which is, you know, tough fight. Then there's a lot of characters. He had I think 3 Demon Princes and 2 Dark Apostles, a couple of Sorcerers, and he had a Captain who was an absolute blender. Now, I can't remember exactly how he got up to this, right? But he had, it was Alpha Legion, so I think he had, is it the Chainsaw Blade of the Hydra? And you, any 6s you get to wound are mortal wounds. Okay, but you can then put Veterans of the Long War on this guy, so any 5s and 6s are mortal wounds. And then there's another thing you can put on him, and apologies, I can't remember it now. I think, is it +1 to wound from one of the Dark Apostles, potentially? Which gives him, so he's getting exploding mortal wounds on 6s, on 4, 5s and 6s. Yikes. Absolute yikes. So, the mission was as follows. So the deployment was Spearhead Assault. So for those of you that don't know what it is, it's lengthways, it's pointy, start 18 inches away from each other. The main Eternal War mission was Big Guns Never Tire. The second Maelstrom mission was Contact Lost, which means you generate one tactical objective the first turn and one additional objective each marker under your control starting from the second turn up to a maximum of 6 in your hand at any given time. There's also an additional bonus, which is you pick a unit type, so elite, HQ, troops, and you can for each if you kill that, you get a bonus point. So if your opponent's got a lot of troops and you then pick troops, you can get huge amounts of bonus points. So for every troop choice you kill, you could get a bonus point. For every HQ, you could get a bonus point. Now my opponent had a lot of HQs, but he also had a lot of screening, 60 screen in bodies, and his troops were weak. So I chose troops for a potential of 6 bonus points. Now I've got 10 troops in my army, which my opponent obviously also chose troops. So how did the game go? So my opponent also had a unit of obliterators. Of course he had a unit of obliterators. Now my opponent deployed relatively defensively, which I wasn't expecting. So he had layers of screens, horrors, cultists, layers of screens he put out front. And then he had his 2 bike blobs. Basically, he focused on his left flank, so he had a bit of a refused flank. He has 2 bike blobs, and then all the characters in amongst the bike blob. 2 bike blobs. And in return, I deployed my Castle O'Doom. Okay, and I also deployed on the field my 2 units of Brood Brothers, because I wanted to, which were part of the. I did this every time. The 2 squads of Brood Brothers, which are part of the Cult of the Four-Armed Emperor detachment. I did that because I had to, in terms of getting enough reinforcement points on the board. I had to spend some CP to put things up in the sky, but it's all good. So I believe I got first turn. I got first turn, and I was like, right, your screens are exposed, and I want to clear screens quickly. So the board had a bit of landslide blocking terrain. There was good landslide blocking terrain, but the thing about Genestealer Cult vehicles is they're all moving 12 inches or 14 inches in the case of the Ridge Runners. So it wasn't a problem. I just redeployed round the line of sight blocking stuff and just blasted away. And so he had a squad of Nurglings, cleared them out. He had 3 squads of cultists, cleared the majority of those out. So got first strike, scored a couple of points on Maelstrom. Happy days, nice quick turn. My opponent then goes, and I'm thinking, right, he's going to start smashing forward with bikes, being aggressive, tying things up. He doesn't do that. And this is what I totally misjudged about the list, which was his bike blobs are not designed for close combat. But think about all the different bike units you face out there, guys. You always face, like Custodes bikers or Shining Spears. And, the majority of bike units that you face get in your face and kill you. But these ones don't. These ones just shoot you. But the great thing about my list is that I'm all in trucks. He's got no long-range anti-tank. He's got 1 million bolt rounds, but I don't care. So because of that, my opponent failed to get first strike. He damaged the hell out of my trucks. Absolutely damaged the hell out of them. But he didn't. He didn't get first strike because of that. So in return, I decide to bring in the pain train. So I bring down my fire base remains as is for now. Okay. I only scored 1 Maelstrom card in the first turn. I scored because of it. I only had one card in my hand. I was in control of 2 objectives, so I drew 2 more Maelstrom cards. Was able to score both those. So one thing I noticed about my list this whole tournament, very good at getting Maelstrom because I'm all over the place. I'm dropping troops down. Maelstrom. I don't think there was any game where I actually got less Maelstrom points than my opponent. Even if I lost, I always pulled it back on Maelstrom, which I really enjoyed about the list. Now, so turn 2, Genestealer Cult initial wave comes in. I hold off with the Acolytes, I hold off with the Aberrants, because he's screening out so well I can't get anywhere near him. I bring in the 30, the 20, I bring in my Rusted Claw shit. 30 Neophytes around the Patriarch, 20 Brood Brothers, conga lining back to the Patriarch, bring that shit down. My Firebase stays mostly where it is, and I bring down the Bike Bomb. And one of my objectives was scour the skies, kill something with flies. So I went after one of his Demon Princes, and I threw 5 demo charges at it. I just obliterated it. Absolutely fantastic unit, the Bike Bomb. So that was the point there. And then all my Firebase opened fire. We cleared out all remaining screening units, because I think I only got 2 in the first turn. So by the end of the second turn, cleared out all screening units, and had, I think I killed another one of his characters, which had been just behind the screen. So good! My opponent responds, he brings the Blitz down and in my back line and starts doing horrible things. No, he doesn't. He forgets turn 2 to bring the Blitz in. Apologies. Sorry, it's my first game, so I don't quite remember. Straight away exactly as I should do. But he forgets and he doesn't bring him in. He stays pretty defensive and he clears out with. But this was the power of his bikes, right? With both bike blobs, he's able to clear out my Neophytes, my big 20-man Brood Brother squad, and he was able to clear out 10 of the Rusted Claw. About 15 of the Rusted Claw Neophytes. Now he then goes to use Endless Cacophony to fight again, because what he's done is he's got his Mortal Wound OP 360 no scope combat character next to my trying to get to my Patriarch, because he's got Kingslayer as one of his cards. So he goes to Endless Cacophony to fire again with one of his bike squads, which was Marcus Lanesh. And I go, nope, a plan generations in the making. Because I brought down just one character to be able to do that. I think it was just the Clamorous. I just brought down the Clamorous so I could do that. Not the Clamorous, the Magus. Put it on the Magus. Oh, not Magus. Which fucking character was it? No, what it was the Clamorous. The Clamorous, yeah. Because I knew where I wanted to put my it's Clamorous. Because you obviously have to have cut the Farmed Emperor unit on the board, I think, to use the stratagem. So I brought a character down because I knew I wanted to have it. I didn't want him to Endless Cacophony me again. So I brought that down. I was able to use the stratagem to stop him from Endless Cacophonying, which meant that his close combat character had to charge in against my Patriarch, and I still had about 15 Neophytes there. So his guy goes in. His guy goes in. He's Mark of Corn, so he fights twice. And even with all that, basically what happens is my unquestioning loyalty saves were pretty hot, and I pretty much pass off all the wounds but 2. The Patriarch just takes 2 wounds, and everything else either gets stopped by the 5+ invuln, I had to use a CP, or unquestioning loyalty, which was apologies, but it was pretty good on my part. My Patriarch then casually snips the head off this guy, and the following turn returns to the shadows. So literally, he sent his Warlord in to kill my Warlord to get Kingslayer, didn't get it, and lost Warlord in return. Terrible turn for my opponent, unfortunately. So now he decides he's going to get ballsy, and he starts getting aggressive with one of his bike squads in his next turn. And unfortunately, he ties up one of my trucks, and surrounds it but doesn't kill it, I can't shoot into him. But then my Acolyte and Aberrants come in turn 3. The Acolytes make it in, clear him off his objective, and I dump them on one of my objectives, which is to defend. It's a defend objective. And that was it. And basically that basically sealed the game, because now half his bikes have been killed. He's got a bunch of characters running around, and one of the bike squad which he hasn't got anywhere near the amount of support he needs in them now. Nowhere near. So, and then my opponent's turn 3 comes around, and unfortunately it kind of seals the deal. He fails 2 5-inch charges. Really fucks himself. And in return, I clear out his remaining. This was with his Demon Princes. 2 5-inch charges on Demon Princes. He failed them with a reroll on one of them. Awful. And so his Blitz come in and start doing horrible things, but they try and target the Aberrants, but they're in cover. He only gets 2 damage, so I'm only taking 1 damage because I'm Aberrant, and I'm on they've only got AP -1, so I've got 5 up save because I'm in cover. I've got 5 up Feel No Pain. I'm rerolling 1s on the Feel No Pain because of the Icon Ward. He doesn't really kill them. So the end result, and then basically, I don't get his Obliterator, but he doesn't get my Aberrants. They're sort of chasing each other around. And the end result is he's got no Demon Princess left. He's got 1 bike squad left, 1 of the Dark Apostle left, and it's a Blitz. And I've got my castle, which has remained pretty much undamaged, and all my characters left. So the end result was it was a solid victory for me, and I think I got something like 15 points. My opponent got 5 tournament points into that. So great. Now, lessons I learned from that was trucks are very durable. Unless some people just don't expect to face like medium armor, and they're so cheap. They're 72 points, and they've got 4+ save and 6 that Feel No Pain. Trucks are for 72 points really good, and in every single game but one, my opponents said they were surprised at how good my trucks were. And the only game where my opponent didn't say that was because he had, which was later on, was he had mortal wound spam, so he just sliced through my trucks very easily. Now, so that was good. So that's what I learned from the first game. The second game was a lot quicker. Very typical game. You know what my list was. My opponent had 3 knights with the Rusty 17 and Blood Angel detachment with 3 squads of scouts, a Smash Captain, and a Blood Angel's Librarian. Smash Captain does what he does. The Blood Angel's Librarian Dreadnought is a fantastic unit. You put quickening on that for +3 charge, +D3 attacks, plus Red Rampage on that, so you've got +2D3 attacks on that thing, and you get Wings of Sanguinius, so you're flying 12 inches across the board. Absolutely mad unit. Now, but this is a typical. It's a Knights, Rust 17, and Blood Angel Smash Captains. Now the mission itself, it was Dawn of War deployment, if I remember correctly. It was Scorched Earth for Eternal War, and it was Tactical Escalation for Maelstrom. The tactical escalation is you get 1 card in the first turn, 2 cards in the second turn, 3 cards in the third turn. And the next, the gimmick, because there's always a gimmick, was tactical priority, which is where you pick a type of card. So do you pick a cleanse or do you pick a secure and control? So you pick a type of Maelstrom card. So for example, do you pick the ones which are secure 1, secure 2, secure 3, or do you pick the ones which are like no prisoners, blood and guts, overwhelming firepower? You pick a type of card, and if you score that card, you get +1 point, which is nice. And if you discard that card, you lose a point. So you pick something you're likely to get, and I went for score. My opponent, being a knight, score 1, score 2, score 3, 4, 5, 6. My opponent went for the killing ones. Okay? As being knights, he's all about killing things. Now, all his knights had thermal cannons and Gatling cannons, and stubbers and flamers and missile pods on top. All shooty. The Scorched Earth mission is where you get a point for each. It's cumulative, so you get a point for each objective you hold. If you get into one of your opponent's objectives, then you can burn it for 2 points, but then no one can score that again. So, really interesting mission, guys. So I went first again, which was nice. And there's a big bit of line of sight blocking terrain. So what I did is I used fake blips and moving blips, and I had each of 3 objectives in our deployment zone. Fake blips and moving blips, basically, and then after my first turn, I moved the majority of my castle behind this big bit of line of sight shooting castle, by this big bit of line of sight blocking terrain, which meant one knight wasn't going to be able to see me. I couldn't quite stop 2 knights from doing it, but one knight couldn't see me. Whatever he did, wherever he moved, one knight couldn't see me. And my opponent, he just deployed 3 knights, and then he put the screen out of Rusty 17, scouts on each flank, dreadnought in the middle, smash captain in the sky. So, my opponent, so I went first. I did that. I cleared out 2 units of Blood Angel scouts, so I got first strike, and damaged a bunch, and did a bit of damage to the different Skitarii Rusty 17 units. That was it. Scored my Maelstrom card, which was like one of the objectives in my half of the board. Scored that. Nice. Opponent's turn. In response, my opponent goes balls deep with one of his knights. He gets up in my face. He blasts. He charges, and the end result, and his Librarian Dreadnought does the same thing with quickening and everything and wings. Gets in, and the end result is I lose a truck and a half, so don't quite lose 2 trucks. One of the Ridge Runners gets taken down a serious notch. He had like 1-2 wounds left, and I was very lucky with my flare launcher. You lose a bunch of neophytes from out of the damaged truck. But not too bad, because I had Brood Brother units on each one of the. I had my castle around one of my objectives in my deployment zone, and Brood Brother units hiding out of line of sight in my other, on my other objectives in my deployment zone. So I was just sat there. My opponent. Oh, that was it. My first objective was defend one of the objectives in my deployment zone. My opponent tried to shoot them, but I stopped in the beginning of the shooting phase. I went, you can't see them. I used a stratagem, which is, if they're wholly in cover, they can't be targeted unless they're the nearest unit. I did that straight away beginning my shooting phase. So my opponent couldn't stop me from getting defend, which gave me a 2-point lead plus first strike, 3 points. My opponent was like, he drew a lot of scoring cards, and the problem was that he didn't want to come out of his. But a lot of the scorecards were sort of in my side of the board that he was getting. So he wasn't really being aggressive enough, if I'll be honest. I think he was very voodooed by Acolyte Bomb and Aberrant Bomb. So apart from the one knight which he sort of lone wolfed up, he sort of stayed back a little bit. Now, turn 2 rolls around, and a lone knight in my deployment zone is too tasty opportunity for me to let slide. Plus there's a Librarian Dreadnought in my face as well. So in response, I Bike Bomb down next to the knight, I Aberrant Bomb down next to the Librarian Dreadnought and the knight, and I take out one knight, I take out the Dreadnought, and I clear away a lot of his remaining screens. I think he had one Skitarii unit left over, so that was good. His turn 2, he pretty much finishes off my armoured division in inverted commas. There is a Ridge Runner left over, which is very important later on. Ridge Runner left over. Smash Captain comes down, fails to charge badly, and that was it. Oh, he tries to get his House Tyrannus with his knights, so he tries to get his knight back up, and he fails it, and he goes to get his knight back up, and I use because I had my aberrants in, I use Planner Generation in the making and stop him from getting his knight back up. Because my thinking was, he might fail the 4-up and the reroll, but one dead knight is better than, it's just better. It's going to screw me out of 3 command points, and it actually meant, the way I tallied it up, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to, wasn't sure I was going to be able to Acolyte bomb after that, and I wasn't. So I was like, damn it. So, so that was that. So what happened next was my opponent has his turn too. He clears out my armoured screen, but he stays back. He hangs back. So, because he's got 2 knights, but he's like, where's the Acolyte bomb? Where's the Acolyte bomb? Where's it going to come in? Where's it going to come in? But I only had 2 command points left over, so I couldn't have got in. Couldn't have done it. So that's a shame. So what happened was he does a lot of long range Daka, but he doesn't hold any of the board practically. So it swings back round to me quite quickly. I take damage, but whatever. Like it's my chaff at this point, you know. So turn 3 rolls around. I brought in all my Rusted Claw shit, by the way, and that's what had helped me kill all the Skitarii and the Blood Angel. So all my opponent had left was 2 knights and 2 Tech Priest Engine Seers. So what happened was my turn 3 rolls around, my bikes blast it into his side of the board. Couldn't quite get to one of his objectives, but out of line of sight. And my my acolytes come in, and I think to myself, I can't get the charge off. I can't get to. He'd screened me out with his Tech Priest Engine Seers, so I couldn't get into his knights. There was no way I could do it. He had like a couple of Skitarii left over as well. He just had enough to do it where I couldn't get to his knight. So I go, right, you know what? I'll spend 2 CP. I will spend just to do lying in wait to go 3 inches away. So I can't charge. So I'm boned. But I get onto one of his objectives, which then allows me to do Scorched Earth. I burn that objective, so he's no longer able to get cumulative points from it. I get 2 points for it. And I'm right next to his knights. Now I can't charge in this turn, but I was in cover and stuff. So the thinking was that he's got to kill my acolytes. He has to kill them, because if he doesn't, they're going to come out there and demolish one of his knights. Even a few of them would be able to do it, because I could Mass Hypnosis. I could then charge in with a few rock swords, do a bit of damage. So both knights are forced to clear out 20 acolytes. So the rest of my army goes pretty much unscathed. So my turn 4 rolls around. My bikes get onto his other objective. Get onto one of his objectives. Burn that one. So I get 2 points. So again, he's not no cumulative scoring at all. Again, there's like 1 Skitarii guy left, so they killed him, burned the objective. And I'm all over the board. I'm pockets of G-Tilical everywhere. And my opponent is forced into one corner. Forced. So he gets to turn 4 and he's like, right, I've got to be aggressive. There's nothing else I can do. So he starts, his turn 4, he starts smashing his knights forward. Being as aggressive as possible. But it's too little too late. And I've got tiny little shattered bits of units everywhere. Which means he can't get to my characters. Which means he's killing little bits, but he can't get Witch Hunter, he can't get Assassinate, he can't get loads of the cards he's got, he just can't score them. And I'm OBSEC on all this stuff, so he's not getting any of the score cards or defend cards that are popping up, and I keep throwing units on them so he doesn't get to defend them when he wants to be defending them. And but he's clearing me out at this point. Now that was my opponent's turn 5. Basically, didn't he was trying to be aggressive. He clears me out, but my turn 5 I would do something really cool, which I've never done this before. My Ridge Runner moves and advances and gets a 6 and goes 20 inches, smashes it forward, which gets it in range of the bikes of the Atalan Jackals. It then uses the once per game ability, where it can make the Atalan Jackals advance their maximum movement, so they go 20 inches. They smash it onto my opponent's last objective, and I burn it. So my opponent has got no cumulative ability whatsoever. End result, guys, is I lose badly on kill points, but I smash my opponent on a turn of war. I got something like I got 3 a turn every turn for 5 turns, which was 15, and then I got 6 off my opponent for burning each one of his. So I was on 21, and my opponent had like 8. Because he got 3 a turn for 2 turns, and he didn't get any. He got one turn, 1 another turn. Maelstrom of War, I absolutely smashed my opponent on that. And the final score is big to me, like 18 points to me or something, 2 points to my opponent. It's big in my favour. So that was good, but that's what I felt good in that game, because that's my list. That was a good matchup for me. That was a good matchup. And what I learned from that game was it's all right to be unorthodox. It's all right to break the plan. Normally, under normal circumstances, it would have been suicide to put 20 acolytes, just to sacrifice them. But what that did is it forced my opponent, I had to deal with them, and it meant that I got to burn his objective. So it worked. It was all right to break the plan. I learned that 2 knights, even in other game, my good. What I learned was the first inklings of how easy it can be to counter Genestealer Cult. My opponent with minimal units, couple of Skitarii, couple of Tech Priests, kind of things, minimal units, was able to screen me out through the whole game. He made one, he got ballsy once, and then I smashed him, and he just stood back. He got voodooed, but it meant that he almost pulled it back in terms of he almost blew me off the table. So game three. Now this was, so the first game was an alright matchup. Could have gone a lot of anti-horde, but could have gone either way. Not a lot of close combat. Second game was a relatively good matchup for me, but screening was tough. Third game, I played what I thought was going to be an auto lose for me. It was tough, guys. It was tough. So it was Death Watch. 2 kill teams, maxed out with the Dako and Storm Shields, and a little tack squad of intercessors. And then 2 characters, Watch Captain and Librarian, for a bit of psychic defense. 3 squads of Custodes bike. So that's a lot of Daka. Then he had 3 squads of Custodes bikers. That's a lot of Hurricane Bolter. With a captain. That's the elite one. They had a battalion of Sisters of Battle with a 10-man squad of Crusaders. So what he's got there, guys, is 9... So he's got 9 Custodes bikers with a captain, who are all on 4+ invulnerable saves. The captain on 3+ invulnerable save. He's got 20 Death Watch guys, which are all on 3+ invulnerable saves. And he's got 10 Crusaders, all on a 3+ invulnerable save. So he's got 30 3+ invulnerable saves. And then so many... It was just so tough. Such a tough army. Now, my opponent in this game was absolutely fantastic. He had a really strong list, but he was a really nice guy. So, really, props to him. Just the kind of tournament player you want to come across. But he wasn't overly familiar with Genestealer Cult. And so what I did is I did a very unorthodox thing. I put 3 blips down. I had my castle down as usual. A couple of Brood Brother squads down to cover my back line in case he had anything he wanted to. In case he wanted to deep strike his kill teams down, because his kill teams were up in the his Deathwatch kill teams were up in the air. And then a couple of blips left over. And what I did is I was like, I want to count. Those bikers are going to come screaming at me. Those Custodians are going to come screaming at me. That's every player who uses those things uses them exactly the same way. They fly at you, they kill, they charge, they get amongst you. They're a huge distraction kind of effect. And I was like, I want to counterattack them. So I actually had my Aberrants down as a blip with I had my Aberrant Bomb on the board to start with as a blip. Insanity. Absolute insanity. But my opponent played right into my hands. So he screams it forward, and that's when he tries to get close to me, and I go, you have to stay 9 inches away from the blips. And he's like, God damn, didn't know that. Well, fair enough. He didn't go, oh, well, I want to move them back and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, no, that's what I've done. Like, that's what he couldn't do anything about it. He's like, oh, well, I'll go 9 inches. I'll still be able to get charges off, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know, but he came screaming at me, got 9 inches away from the blips. And then those blips disappeared because they were fake blips, they were fake news. And my opponent was suddenly out of charge range. He could shoot me, but he was also out of rapid fire range with his Custodes Bikers. So his first turn distraction kind of action, he's got left pissing into the wind. And so it began. So he did some scattered damage, but he didn't get first strike because guess what? Trying to shoot bolt weapons into trucks doesn't work. Just doesn't do any damage. And he was so paranoid about me getting in his back line that his Crusaders and his Intercessors and all his Sisters of Battle were just spread out in his deployment zone. Oh, shit, mission, should say. Sorry, guys. The deployment was table quarters. The Eternal War mission was 4 pillars, so only troops can score the 4 objective markers on the board. And Maelstrom of War was disrupted signals, which meant that it's kind of like ITC light, where if you score more victory points if you hold more than your objectives than your opponent, and if you've killed more. So it's kind of like ITC light. So in response, I'm like, right, I need to. So his bikers are screamed forward. So in response, my aberrants moved forward 6 inches towards him, and they had, so I had a 5-inch charge because I was just over 6 inches. And they advanced. Now this is risky, but I had psychic stimulus as a psychic power, and I got that off, so they were able to move, advance, and still charge. And so what happened was, long story short, is my aberrants jumped on top of his Custodes Bikers and I was a bit unlucky, but killed 2 of them. Just killed 2 of them. I didn't have Might from Beyond off on them, so they struggled. And then the main event happened, which was my castle opened up on his bikers. And very fortunately, I fired my sniper lady first, who gave them +1 to hit. She got the hit, and she got the 6 for the mortal wound. So my opponent couldn't stop. He saved the regular thing, but I'd done a wound. So first thing I did, slap down chilling efficiency. Suddenly, everyone's hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s. And even the guys inside are hitting on 3s. All my firepower went into those Custodes Bikers. And I got them. Just about. I think a mining laser got through and I had to get a 4 or more to kill the last one, and I got it on the D6 damage. And my opponent went, wow. My opponent's exact results, exact sort of paraphrasing, his words were, wow. No one has done that to these bikers. He said, you have killed, out of all the games I played this list, you're the only person who's basically wiped out 2 bike squads in 1 turn. So my opponent obviously had a lot of confidence in these bikes, which is why he threw them forward and was very aggressive with them. So he was on the back foot from that point. Now his turn 2 flies around. His kill teams come down. 1 goes on one of the 4 pillars and just long range blats at me, pretty much all game, until the final turn, which we'll get to. And the other one comes in to support his now beleaguered Custodes. And we had a bit of a joke, and we were like, the Custodes have flown, and the Death Watch are like, fucking hell, we've got to bail the Custodes out again. So, but I'm going to have to cut this, I'm going to cut it short, guys, because basically what happened was, his Custodes, I then bike bombed his remaining Custodes biker, wiped it out, got his his bike commander in the psychic phase, by just absolutely overwhelming mortal wound spamming it, and really chipped away at one of his kill teams, and did a huge amount of damage. Chipped away with all my DACA at the kill teams and some other stuff. And at this point, what's he got left? He's got a kill team which is miles away, a kill team which is on its own facing a Gene Stealer Cult gun line, and this is a battle which aren't able to do anything. And that was it. I just blasted. I melted him to pieces with sight. I just smite. I wasn't, just absolutely melted him. And the end result, guys, was a matchup that should have destroyed me I think I got 20-0 against it. I absolutely smashed it. So I had all the the kill team that was on it that I said I'd get back to later. My Acolyte Bomb came in, but he made so many 3-up saves that I basically bounced, but it didn't matter because I was able to obsec that objective with more than he had. So that was the end of day 1. 3 wins. Convincing wins. I was very happy. One of them against a tough matchup, but the problem is our team had done very well, which meant that going into the second day, the standard of play was going to be very high, and it was. So going straight into the second day, the mission was, the deployment was Hammer and Anvil, mission was the Scouring, and the Maelstrom was Cleanse and Capture. So you just get three tactical objectives every turn, no gimmick. And I was facing Smite Spam, guys. I was facing Smite Spam of the highest degree. 1,000 Suns and Tzeentch Demons. Magnus, Lord of Change. Magnus, Lord of Change. Horrors. Demon Princes. Sorcerers. It was horrendous. And I made 2 mistakes, to be honest. One, I thought, well, I'll use my Magus' ability to give everyone loads of free Deny the Witches to try and stop the Psychic Onslaught. I couldn't do it. I think my opponent was somehow able to cast, it was 10 plus, maybe 17 Psychic Powers a turn or something. It was a lot of Psychic Powers. I couldn't stop the Onslaught. My Psychic buff wall just got massacred. And on top of that, I rushed my deployment. Pardon me, I rushed my deployment and I left a gap open for my opponent. He had a Zangor bomb and he got it. He got it in. He didn't make the charge, fortunately, but it meant I had to spend my entire first turn clearing away his Zangors, and then his Psychers came in and started demolishing me. And we only got to turn 3 because he had such a psychic phase and I had such a cult army that unfortunately we didn't get to do it. The highlight was I biker bombed a Demon Prince, managed to take out the Lord of Change just by dogpiling it with Acolytes and Aberrants in one go. That was it pretty much. So fortunately, short game, only got to turn 3. My psychic spam minced me to pieces. And the Zangor mistake was huge. Absolutely huge. I had to redo, with all my blips and moving blips, I had to redo my whole plan. Now, so the final game was a tough mission. Again, it was, deployment was Dawn of War. The mission itself was cut off the head. It was secure and control and cut off the head together and decapitation strike. It was incredibly complicated. I had to say, for a final game in a tournament after 2 days of playing, it was well overcomplicated. One criticism of the tournament was you do not want a mission that complicated tournament. ITC has shown why you want simple missions. Because otherwise it just slows everything down. Anyway, the list I was playing against I was playing against Team Scotland, one of the people from Team Scotland, ETC team, very good. They came second overall at the tournament. My opponent knew his list at the back of his hand, didn't make a single mistake. Really good guy. He was obviously a bit tired, but by the time we'd had a few drinks and a few games, we were laughing. Very good game. But he was using Death Watch with 3 kill teams maxed out with 10 Storm Shields on each, or as many Storm Shields you could get in each squad. As many Storm Bolts as you get in each squad. Horrific. He had 3 of them, some Sisters with 3 Exorcists, and Blood Angels with Smash Cat, Librarian, Dreadnought and Scouts. Imperial Soup. And unfortunately, I never quite got ahead in this game. My opponent screened me out really, really well. Really, really well. Screened me out massively. I could never get on anywhere near the objectives. My reinforcements couldn't come in anywhere near as good as I wanted them to. And when I did get them in, I wasn't able to concentrate because he had things coming in my deployment zones and horrifically screening capable list, because you've got all the scissors which can screen, you've got all the blood angels which can screen, you've got the smash captain which can pop up, pop down, who can screen, you've got the quickened librarian dreadnought who can screen, and the kill teams themselves, one can screen for so much. And he was throwing so many, he was so aggressive with his list. The problem, which is what I've said in previous videos, is a good thing in any tournament player's aggression. I wasn't able to concentrate my psychic powers to try and melt through his invuns. So I ended up sending an aberrant bomb into one of his kill teams. He just made nearly all. He only lost. I was out of a full aberrant bomb. He lost like 4 guys. It was nothing. He made all his 3-up saves. They then smashed the aberrants back in return. The Acolyte bomb was forced to deal with a rampaging Librarian Dreadnought. Smash Captain survived a horrendous amount of. Smash Captain took my gun line and survived on 1 wound. That's how good the Smash Captain was. This guy, my opponent was making 3-up saves like a fiend, but that's what 3-up saves do, and that's what we've talked about. It only takes 1 round of good luck, and yeah, that was it. So unfortunately, I never really got ahead. He was able. His Exorcists were bombarding me. His guys were smashing me with Kraken rounds, 15-inch rapid fire. 40 shots from every squad. Horrific. And unfortunately, I didn't get tabled. I was able to be quite clever, but like I said, I never really got ahead, guys. Never really got ahead. This guy knew exactly what he was doing. He didn't make a single mistake. His list was perfect for dealing with my list. And the end result was I lost, but I got 2 points. So I didn't get 20-0'd at any point. I didn't get tailed at any point. I ended up as a positive player on the team. I had 3 wins, 2 losses under my belt. My teammates all did relatively the same. The night list in our team won loads of games, 4 games, and got smashed in one game and lost 20-0 basically. So, wrapping up, thoughts, comments. What can I say about the list? Tactical review of the list, right? I've noticed this with Genestealer Cult. If your opponent hasn't faced them a lot, doesn't really know what they do, then you can voodoo them quite well, and you can be very aggressive with them, and you can sort of get round your opponent's screens and all that jazz. If your opponent knows what they're doing, they will screen you out. And in both games, my opponent knew what he was doing, was able to effectively screen very well, and then just melt what was left over. Just melt it. So I've started thinking that Genestealer Cult, as I said this when Genestealer Cult first dropped, I think Genestealer Cult are a shooting army. I think trying to drop down and charge, if your opponent can screen, then you're dead. And the most successful part of my army in the whole tournament, every single game, was my shooting castle. Every single game it did the majority of the damage, because my Acolyte bomb would get screened out or had to go, or didn't quite kill what it wanted to kill. Same thing with the Aberrant bomb. I was struggling to get my guys souped up because there's so much psychic throwing around now. Genestealer Cult aren't the best psychers, so my opponents were denying things, because sisters can do on a 4-up, and I faced sisters 2 or 3 times. Yeah, so that's what I'd say. I think Genestealer Cult, I would be really interested to see a full shooting Genestealer Cult army. Full on shooting, and I almost think that would be more competitive. So you've got guys which are dropping down and shooting, rather than having bombs of aberrants and acolytes and all that. No, screw that. Your opponent's just going to screen you out. Taking 2 bike bombs and just dropping down demo charges, dropping down demo charges. I think that's the way to do it. I think that's the way to make Genestealer Cult anti-meta. Because they've got so many ways of getting +1 to hit, and then you've got reroll 1s, you've got easy access to that. Things which Guard doesn't have anywhere near as easy access to unless you're forced to go down the Cajun route. You're more maneuverable because you guys can deep strike in. But yeah, that's my final tactical thoughts on the matter. So, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. And tell me what you think. Put your comments down below. And of course, I will see you guys next time.